Your husband left you at the altar, but the janitor surprises you in an incredible way. Rachel Thompson took a deep breath as she adjusted her veil for the last time. Her fingers trembled slightly as she touched the delicate fabric her grandmother had worn decades ago. It was the most important day of her life, or at least it should have been. Outside the bride's room, she could hear the murmur of the 200 guests waiting at St. Peter's Church in the heart of New York. Bradley, her fiancé, had insisted on planning every last detail, a ceremony that cost a fortune and would be remembered by everyone. Rachel had always dreamed of this moment, but a part of her felt uneasy. The door opened, and Father William appeared with a worried expression. His kind eyes, which usually radiated peace, seemed troubled. "Rachel, dear," his voice sounded hesitant. "I need to talk to you." "What happened, Father? Is Bradley already out there?" The silence that followed was louder than any noise. Rachel felt her heart race when she saw the small white envelope in the clergyman's hands. "He asked me to give this to you," said the father, extending the letter. With trembling hands, Rachel opened the paper and immediately recognized Bradley's handwriting. The words seemed to dance before her eyes. "Rachel, I'm sorry, I can't do this. I thought I could, but every time I look at you in the chair, I feel our life will be different from what I planned. You deserve someone better than me. Bradley." The world seemed to crumble around her. The wheelchair, which she had used for 3 years after a car accident, had never been a real problem between them. At least that's what Bradley always said. Apparently, he had been lying the whole time. "Rachel?" The father's voice seemed to come from far away. She looked up, feeling the tears begin to fall. Outside, 200 people were waiting for a radiant bride to walk down the aisle. Instead, they would have to witness the public humiliation of a woman abandoned because of her physical condition. "I need to go out there," she murmured, putting the letter in the small purse she carried. "Rachel, you don't have to—" "Yes, I do, Father. These people came here for me. They deserve an explanation." Taking a deep breath, Rachel directed her chair toward the church door. The father followed her, clearly worried about what might happen. The large doors opened, and the murmurs ceased immediately. All faces turned to her, expecting to see the typical joy of a bride. Instead, they found a 28-year-old woman with brown hair in an elegant bun, wearing a simple but beautiful white dress, trying to maintain her composure in her wheelchair. Rachel rolled slowly down the center aisle. With every meter, she felt the weight of the curious stares and the whispers that began to form. Reaching the altar, she stopped and turned to face the crowd. "Dear friends and family," her voice came out stronger than she expected, "I thank you all for being here on this day that was supposed to be special. Unfortunately, there will be no ceremony today. Bradley has decided he cannot marry me because of my physical condition." A heavy silence filled the room. Rachel could see the shocked faces, some with pity, others with indignation. Her mother, Margaret, rose from the front row with tears in her eyes, but Rachel gestured for her to remain seated. "I apologize for the embarrassment and for the expenses you incurred to be here today. The hall is reserved for the reception, so anyone who wishes can go there and enjoy the food and music. It would be a waste to throw it all away." Slowly, people began to rise. Some approached her with words of support, others left quickly, clearly uncomfortable with the situation. In 15 minutes, the church was almost empty. Rachel remained at the altar, looking at the crucifix before her. The tears she had held back with such effort finally began to flow freely. This was the moment she was supposed to be exchanging rings with the man she loved. Instead, she was alone, feeling completely rejected. It was then that she heard soft footsteps echoing through the church. She turned and saw a man around 35 years old, with dark hair, wearing a light blue shirt and brown pants. He was pushing a cleaning cart and seemed to be straightening chairs that had been left out of place. "Excuse me," he said softly, as if he didn't want to interrupt her moment. "May I continue tidying up, or would you prefer I come back later?" Rachel watched him for a moment. There was something comforting about his presence, a calmness that contrasted with the emotional chaos she was experiencing. "You may continue," she replied, drying her eyes with a handkerchief. The man nodded respectfully and continued his work. Rachel watched him place each chair in the right spot, pick up wedding programs that had fallen on the floor, and extinguish candles that were still lit. There was a gentleness in his movements that caught her attention. After a few minutes of silence, he approached her again. "Forgive my indiscretion, but I've worked here for 5 years. I've seen many weddings, but I've never seen a bride with so much courage to face a situation like this." Rachel looked up, surprised by the comment. "Courage?" She let out a bitter laugh. "I don't know if I'd call it courage. I think it was more desperation." "No, ma'am. It was courage." He stopped working and looked at her. "Anyone in your situation would have run away or sent someone else to give the explanations. You faced 200 people and took responsibility for something that wasn't your fault." There was a sincerity in his voice that touched Rachel in an unexpected way. She studied his face more closely. He had kind brown eyes, a well-groomed beard, and a warm smile, even in the face of the awkward situation. "What's your name?" she asked. "Nathan Mitchell, but everyone calls me Nate. And you're Rachel, right? I heard the father say your name." "That's right. How long have you worked here, Nate?" 5 years. I started after my life changed completely." He hesitated for a moment. "I work Monday through Saturday. I always stay after events to leave everything organized for the next day." Rachel noticed a subtle sadness in his eyes when he mentioned the change in his life, but she didn't want to press the subject. "You've witnessed many weddings, then?" "Hundreds," he continued, arranging the candles. "I've seen simple weddings that lasted decades, and luxurious weddings that ended in a few months. I've learned that what really matters isn't the party, but what people truly feel for each other." "And what did you think Bradley felt for me?" The question came out before she could think better of it. Nate stopped his work again and looked at her seriously. "Can I be honest?" Rachel nodded. "A man who truly loves a woman doesn't abandon her at the moment she needs him most, and certainly not through a note, as if she were an employee being fired." His voice held a tone of restrained indignation. "Sorry if I was blunt, but that's what I think." His words resonated deeply with Rachel. During the 2-year relationship with Bradley, she had always had small doubts about his sincerity regarding her physical condition. He avoided certain places, changed the subject when someone asked about adaptations for their future home, and sometimes she caught him looking at her with an expression she couldn't decipher. "I think deep down I already knew," she admitted, "but I chose to believe he would change, that love would be enough to overcome those barriers." "Love should be enough," said Nate, returning to his work. "At least that's what I learned from my experience." Again, Rachel noticed a melancholy in his voice. There was clearly a story behind those words. The church bells rang 6 in the evening. Rachel realized she had spent almost 2 hours there, talking to a janitor who showed more understanding and empathy than her own fiancé. "Nate," she called as he was putting away the cleaning supplies, "can I ask you a personal question?" He stopped and turned to her. "Of course." "Are you married?" The question seemed to touch him deeply. He looked down for a moment before answering. "I was. My wife. She's not with me anymore." "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to—" "No need to apologize," he gently interrupted. "She passed away 3 years ago, cancer." Rachel felt her heart tighten. The pain in his voice was palpable. "I'm so sorry for your loss." "Thank you, she was like you." He hesitated, as if deciding whether to continue. "She also used a wheelchair. She was born with spina bifida." The silence that followed was different from the previous ones. It wasn't uncomfortable, but filled with mutual understanding. "How did you meet?" Rachel felt compelled to ask. A nostalgic smile appeared on Nate's face. "In college, I studied civil engineering. She studied psychology. She was always in the library, and I always found excuses to study there too, just to see her." He leaned against the wall, lost in memories. "It took me 3 months to gather the courage to talk to her." "And what did you say?" "I asked if she could help me with statistics." He chuckled softly. "Even though I got excellent grades in math, she figured out right away it was an excuse, but she helped me anyway." Rachel smiled for the first time that day. There was something comforting about hearing a true love story, especially from someone who had clearly loved deeply. Were you happy? Very. 10 years together, 6 married. She taught me to see life in a completely different way. Before I met her, I was obsessed with plans, goals, material achievements. She showed me that the simple things are what really matter. How so? A sunset, the smell of coffee in the morning, the sound of rain on the window. He gestured gently. She had a unique way of finding beauty in everything. She said that when you learn to value small moments, your whole life becomes special. Rachel felt deeply moved by his words. In recent years, especially after the accident, she had focused so much on what she had lost that she forgot to see what she still had. She sounds like she was an amazing person. She was. And you know what else? She never saw herself as limited by the wheelchair. She said limitations only existed in people's minds. She went to college, worked as a child psychologist, traveled, played adaptive sports. His eyes shone. She lived more intensely in her 32 years than many people do in 80. What happened to your engineering career? Rachel asked, curious about how he had ended up in a janitorial job. Nate's expression darkened slightly. When she got sick, I had to stop working to take care of her. We used all our savings on her treatment. After she passed, I couldn't go back to engineering. I was lost, without direction. That's when Father William offered me this job. He said I needed some time to find myself. And have you found yourself? I think I'm on my way. He smiled sadly. Taking care of the church has brought me a peace I didn't expect. It's as if each day I'm helping to make sure people's important moments happen in the best possible environment. Rachel reflected on those words. There was a simple yet profound wisdom in Nate's life philosophy. Can I tell you something? She said impulsively. Of course. Before the accident, I was a lot like the person you were. Obsessed with goals, always chasing achievements. I worked 12-hour days at my family's company, thinking only about professional growth and making money. And the accident changed your perspective. It changed everything. Overnight, I realized that none of that really mattered. I spent months feeling useless, thinking my life was over. It was Bradley who helped me out of the depression, at least that's what I thought. Her voice turned bitter. Now I realize he might have stayed with me out of pity, not love. Don't say that. Nate moved closer to her. From the little I observed today, you are a strong, intelligent, and courageous woman. Any real man would feel lucky to have you by his side. The sincerity in his voice made Rachel blush slightly. It had been a long time since she had felt truly valued as a woman. Thank you, Nate. Your words mean a lot to me, especially today. They sat in comfortable silence for a few minutes. Rachel felt strangely at peace in that environment, which should have been the scene of her humiliation. Nate's presence had transformed one of the worst moments of her life into something almost therapeutic. Rachel, her mother's voice echoed through the church. Margaret Thompson was walking quickly down the central aisle, her face red with anger and worry. She didn't even notice Nate, focusing all her attention on her daughter. Rachel, I've been looking for you for hours. Everyone has left the reception. What a disgrace, my daughter. What a disgrace, she panted nervously. Bradley is being lynched on social media. People are calling him a coward, a scoundrel. Mom, Rachel interrupted, he is a coward. Rachel, how can you speak that way about the man you love? About the man who left me at the altar because he can't accept that I use a wheelchair? Rachel felt the anger growing inside her. Mum, he humiliated me in front of 200 people. He treated me like a problem to be discarded. Margaret finally noticed Nate's presence, who had discreetly stepped back but remained nearby. Who is this? She asked suspiciously. This is Nate. He works here at the church. Margaret barely acknowledged him, turning her attention back to her daughter. Rachel, you need to forgive Bradley. He was nervous, scared. Every groom gets like that before the wedding. Scared of what, Mum? Of me? Of my chair? It's not that, dear. It's fear of responsibility, of having to take care of a cripple. Is that what you were going to say? Rachel had never seen her mother so uncomfortable. Margaret had always avoided speaking openly about her daughter's condition, as if ignoring the subject made it cease to exist. Rachel, don't put words in my mouth. I don't need to, Mom. Your expression says it all. Nate approached again, sensing the situation was becoming tense. "Excuse me, Mrs. Thompson," he said respectfully. "May I suggest you continue this conversation at home? The church will close in a few minutes." Margaret glared at him irritably. "And what does this have to do with you?" "Nothing, Ma'am. I'm just concerned for your well-being." "Rachel," Margaret turned to her daughter, "let's go home. You're tired and upset. We'll talk more about all this tomorrow." Rachel hesitated. Part of her did want to go home, lock herself in her room and cry until she fell asleep. But another part didn't want to leave that place where she had found a little peace. "All right, Mom, I'll go with you." She headed for the exit, but stopped beside Nate. "Thank you for the conversation. You helped me more than you know." "It was my pleasure, Rachel. If you want to talk again, I'll be here every day." Margaret furrowed her brow at the familiarity between them, but said nothing. Mother and daughter left the church in silence. During the journey back home, Rachel reflected on everything that had happened. Bradley's abandonment, though painful, had revealed aspects of his personality she had chosen to ignore for 2 years. On the other hand, the conversation with Nate had shown her that there were men capable of loving truly, without reservations or prejudice. Upon arriving home, a mansion in the Upper East Side neighborhood, Rachel went straight to her room. Margaret followed her. "Rachel, we need to talk about what happened today. About Bradley abandoning me, or about you agreeing with him?" "I don't agree with him," Margaret defended herself. "I just think you should try to understand his side." "What side, Mother?" "The side that considers a wheelchair an insurmountable obstacle to love." Margaret sighed heavily. "Rachel, be realistic. Marrying someone in your condition brings extra challenges. Bradley may have realized he wasn't prepared to face them. And what do you think I should do? Accept that no man will ever truly love me because I use a wheelchair? That's not it, dear. But perhaps you should look for someone who better understands your situation." Rachel understood exactly what her mother meant, and it hurt her even more. "Someone who is also disabled, is that it? It would be more natural, don't you think?" Rachel felt a deep sadness. Even her own mother saw her as a diminished person who should settle for less than she deserved. "Mother, I'm going to rest. Today was a very difficult day." Margaret kissed her daughter's forehead and left the room. Rachel was left alone with her thoughts. For the first time in 3 years, she questioned whether she had truly overcome the trauma of the accident or had merely learned to live with it. The next morning, Rachel woke with a strange feeling. It wasn't exactly sadness about the situation with Bradley, but a restlessness she couldn't identify. While having coffee, she couldn't stop thinking about the conversation with Nate. There was something about him that piqued her curiosity. The way he spoke of his late wife showed a deep and genuine love. He had loved a woman in conditions similar to hers and never showed any embarrassment or limitation because of it. "Rachel," her mother entered the kitchen. "Bradley called. He wants to talk to you." Rachel felt her stomach turn. "What did you tell him?" "That you were sleeping, but that I would pass on the message." "I don't want to talk to him, Mother." "Rachel, he was crying. He said he made the biggest mistake of his life." "And he did. But it's not something fixed with an apology." The phone rang again. Margaret answered and, after a few minutes of conversation, hung up. "He's coming here tonight. He wants to explain everything in person." Rachel sighed. She knew it would be impossible to avoid this conversation forever. "All right, but don't expect me to forgive him easily." The day passed slowly. Rachel tried to distract herself with work. She managed part of the family business, mainly the marketing area, but she couldn't concentrate. Her mind kept returning to Nate's words about valuing small moments. On impulse, she decided to leave the house. She wanted to visit the church again, talk to Nate, and perhaps better understand her own feelings. Arriving at St. Peter's Church, Rachel found Nate arranging flowers at the altar. He wore the same simple clothes as the day before, but there was something different in his posture. He seemed more relaxed, more at ease. "Hi, Nate," she called softly so as not to startle him. He turned and his face lit up with a genuine smile. "Rachel, what a nice surprise. How are you?" "Confused," she answered honestly. "I came here because I'm not really sure why. I think I needed to talk to someone who understood me." "You can talk. I'm here." Rachel approached the altar where he was working. The flowers he was arranging were simple, but they were arranged with an artistic care that caught her attention. "You have a knack for this," she commented. "My wife taught me." She said flowers are like people. Each one has its personality and its ideal place. The secret is knowing how to observe and respect those characteristics. "Do you miss her every day?" The question came out more direct than Rachel intended, but Nate didn't seem bothered. "Yes and no. I miss her physical presence, the conversations, the plans we made together. But I don't miss her in a desperate way, because she taught me to carry the love we felt in a positive way." "How so?" "She said that true love doesn't die with the person. It transforms into good memories, into lessons learned, into ways to help other people. Every time I take care of these flowers, or help someone who is going through difficulties, I feel as if I'm honoring the love we shared." Rachel fell silent, processing those words. There was a depth in Nate's philosophy that completely contrasted with the superficial materialism of the environment she lived in. "Nate, can I ask you an indiscreet question?" "Go ahead." "Why haven't you looked for someone else? 3 years is a long time to be alone." He stopped handling the flowers and looked at her. "Because I haven't found someone who made my heart race again." He hesitated for a moment. "And because I learned it's better to be alone than with the wrong person." "And how would you know if you found the right person?" "I think I'd know by how I felt beside her. If I felt complete, at peace, with a desire to care for and protect, but also to be cared for and protected. If I felt we could build something beautiful together." His words touched Rachel deeply. That was exactly how she would want to feel in a relationship. "Bradley is coming to talk to me tonight," she said, changing the subject. "How do you feel about that?" "I don't know. Part of me still loves him, but another part can't forget the humiliation from yesterday." "And what does your heart say?" Rachel reflected on the question. "My heart says that a man who truly loves me wouldn't abandon me at the most important moment of our lives. But my mind says that maybe I should give him a second chance, because it might have just been nerves. What would you do if it were your best friend going through this?" "I'd tell her not to accept it," Rachel answered without hesitation. "I'd say she deserves someone who loves her unconditionally." "Then why is it different when it comes to you?" Nate's question was like a punch to the stomach. Rachel realized she was being lenient with Bradley out of fear of being alone, not out of true love. "Because I'm afraid," she admitted. "Afraid that he's the only person who will accept me like this." "Rachel," Nate moved closer to her chair. "Can I tell you something my wife always said?" She nodded. "She said that when we accept less than we deserve out of fear, we are disrespecting not only ourselves but also the people who would truly love us for who we are." "How so?" "If you stay with someone who doesn't love you completely, you're occupying the place of someone who would love you for real, and you're preventing that person from appearing in your life." Nate's words resonated deeply with Rachel. She had never thought about relationships that way. "Do you think there's someone like that for me?" "I'm sure," he said without hesitation. "You're an incredible woman, Rachel. Smart, courageous, beautiful. Any real man would feel blessed to be by your side." Rachel felt her heart race. There was something in the way Nate looked at her that made her feel special, desired, complete. "Nate," she began to say, but was interrupted by the entrance of 2 elderly ladies into the church. "Good afternoon, Mr. Nate," one of them greeted cheerfully. "We've come for the 5 o'clock Mass." "Good afternoon, Mrs. Dorothy, Mrs. Helen. The Mass will be at the usual time." The ladies headed to the front pews. Rachel noticed how they treated Nate with affection and respect, not just as an employee. "You are very well liked here," she observed. "People took me in when I needed it most. I try to repay that kindness as best I can." Rachel was touched by his humility. She was used to men who boasted about their achievements and possessions. Nate was different. He found satisfaction in serving and caring for others. "I need to go," she said reluctantly. "My mother is preparing dinner, and Bradley will be here in a few hours." "All right. And Rachel?" "Yes?" "Trust your heart. It never lies." Rachel smiled and headed for the exit. At the church door, she turned to take one last look at Nate. He was tending to the flowers again, with that gentle concentration she was beginning to find charming. During the journey back home, Rachel couldn't stop thinking about him. There was something magnetic about the way he viewed life, in the love he still held for his late wife, in the compassion he showed to everyone around him. Arriving home, she found her mother bustling in the kitchen. "Rachel, where were you? I'm preparing that risotto Bradley loves. You need to get ready. He'll be here in an hour." "Mom, it's not a special occasion. He's coming here to explain himself, not for a romantic date." "Even so, you should look presentable. Put on that blue dress he always complimented." Rachel sighed. Her mother clearly hoped for a reconciliation, but she wasn't sure that's what she wanted. Going up to her room, Rachel looked at herself in the mirror. The events of the last few days had changed something in her expression. She looked more mature, more determined. The conversation with Nate had awakened in her a self-esteem she hadn't felt in a long time. She chose a simple white blouse and a black skirt, elegant but not seductive. If Bradley wanted to talk, it would be a serious conversation, not an attempt to win her back based on appearances. At 8 o'clock sharp, Bradley arrived. Rachel heard him talking with her mother in the living room. His voice sounded nervous, different from the confident tone she knew. When Rachel entered the room, Bradley stood up immediately. He looked visibly worn down, red eyes unshaven, clothes rumpled. He seemed not to have slept since the day before. "Rachel," he said, his voice choked, "thank you for seeing me." She nodded, keeping her distance. "I'll let you two talk," said Margaret, leaving the room discreetly. Bradley moved closer to Rachel's chair, but she gestured for him to stop. "You can speak from there." He sighed deeply. "Rachel, I made the biggest mistake of my life. I have no excuses for what I did. I was terrified, confused, and I ended up hurting the person I love most in the world." "Terrified of what, Bradley?" Of everything. Of the responsibility, of the changes we'd have to make, of what people would think. Of the wheelchair." He lowered his eyes, unable to deny it. "Yes. And I know that's horrible. I know it shouldn't matter, but I have a hard time dealing with it." Rachel felt a mix of anger and pity. At least he was being honest. "Bradley, 2 years ago you told me the wheelchair wasn't a problem. You made me believe you loved me regardless of it. And I do love you, more than anything. No, Bradley, you love the idea of me. You love who I was before the accident. The wheelchair has always been an obstacle between us. You just pretended it wasn't. That's not true, isn't it? Then why did you always change the subject when I talked about adaptations for our home? Why did you never want to meet other couples where one partner is in a wheelchair? Why did you avoid events where I would use the wheelchair the whole time?" Bradley couldn't answer. Rachel's words were like slaps to the face because they were true. "Rachel, I can learn to deal with this better. I can go to therapy, get help." "For what? To pretend you accept me? To spend the rest of your life trying not to be bothered by an essential part of who I am? It's not like that." "Yes, it is, Bradley. And you know what? I deserve better than that." The words came out with a conviction that surprised Rachel herself. For the first time, she truly believed she deserved unconditional love. "What are you saying?" His voice became desperate. "I'm saying I don't want a man who needs therapy to accept me. I want someone who sees me as a whole person, not as a problem to be overcome." Bradley moved closer again. This time she didn't stop him. "Rachel, please, give me a second chance. I promise I'll change." "Bradley, you can't promise to change your feelings, and even if you could, I don't want to be with someone who sees me as a burden." "You were never a burden. But you left me at the altar because you couldn't handle my condition. If that's not seeing me as a burden, I don't know what is." Tears began to stream down Bradley's face. "Rachel, I love you. I know I ruined everything, but I can't lose you." Rachel felt a deep sadness, not for him, but for the whole situation. For 2 years, she had built a fantasy that he loved her completely. Discovering the truth was liberating but also painful. "Bradley, you're not losing something you really had. You were dating an idealized version of me, not the real person." "That's not true." "Yes, it is. The real person uses a wheelchair. The real person needs adaptations in various places. The real person sometimes faces difficulties you never wanted to acknowledge. Bradley was crying openly now. What do you want me to do? How can I prove I've changed? You can't, Bradley, and I don't want you to try. I deserve someone who loves me naturally, effortlessly, without having to convince themselves I'm worth it. And you think you'll find someone like that? The question came out with an unconscious cruelty that revealed exactly what Bradley thought about her chances of being happy with someone else. Yes, Rachel answered firmly, I'm sure I will. Rachel, be realistic. Do you think it's easy for a person in your situation to find someone? The question was like a bucket of cold water. Rachel realized Bradley wasn't just revealing his own prejudices, but also what he imagined she should accept as her fate. Get out of my house, she said quietly. Rachel, I didn't mean... Now, she shouted. Bradley understood he had crossed a line with no return. He stood up slowly. Rachel, I'm sorry. That's not what I meant. Yes, it is. You made clear what you think about me and my chances of being happy. Now get out of my house and don't come back. Bradley hesitated at the living room door. Rachel, get out. He finally left. Rachel heard the front door close and the sound of his car driving away. Only then did she allow the tears to flow freely. Margaret appeared in the living room a few minutes later. What happened? I heard you shouting. He showed who he really is, Mom. And I showed who I really am, too. Rachel, you two fought because you're upset. Tomorrow, everything will be resolved. No, Mom, it won't be resolved. It's over for good. Rachel wheeled her chair to the bedroom, leaving her mother bewildered in the living room. She lay on the bed and cried until she fell asleep, not from sadness over losing Bradley, but from relief at having freed herself from a relationship that diminished her. The next morning, Rachel woke with a lightness she hadn't felt in a long time. For the first time in years, there was no unresolved tension in her love life. There was no more pretense, no unrealistic expectations, no awkwardness. During breakfast, Margaret tried to bring up the subject of the previous night, but Rachel was firm in saying she didn't want to discuss Bradley ever again. Rachel, you might be making a mistake. Mother, I made a mistake 2 years ago when I started dating him. Yesterday I corrected that mistake. Margaret sighed, realizing her daughter had made a definitive decision. Around 10 o'clock, Rachel decided to leave the house. She felt the need to talk to Nate again. There was something about him that calmed her and at the same time challenged her to be a better version of herself. Arriving at the church, she didn't find him in his usual spot. She asked one of the ladies cleaning the altar where he was. Mr. Nate is in the back garden, replied Mrs. Dorothy. He's tending to the plants he grew there. Rachel had never been to the back of the church. She followed the lady's instructions and found a small side door that led to an inner courtyard. What she saw left her speechless. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out, now continuing. There was an absolutely stunning garden hidden behind the church. Dozens of flower species, small fruit trees, perfectly organized flower beds, and stone paths that intertwined harmoniously. In the center, a small water fountain completed this urban oasis. Nate was kneeling near a rose bush, carefully removing dry leaves. He wore gardening gloves and had dirt on his clothes, but seemed completely absorbed in what he was doing. Nate, she called softly. He turned and smiled upon seeing her. Rachel, what a surprise. How did you find me here? Mrs. Dorothy told me where you were. I didn't know this garden existed here. It's my secret project, he said, standing up and removing his gloves. I started planting here 3 years ago. Father William gave me permission to use this space. Rachel looked around, impressed by the beauty and organization of the place. You did all this yourself? Yes. It's a form of therapy for me. When I'm tending to the plants, I feel as if I'm talking to my wife. Rachel approached a flower bed where there were small wooden plaques among the plants. What are these plaques? Nate hesitated for a moment, as if deciding whether to explain or not. They're the names of couples who got married here at the church. Every time I witness a wedding, I plant a seedling and place a plaque with the names of the bride and groom. Rachel was touched by the idea. How many weddings have you witnessed? 243, he replied without hesitation. Each one planted here, each story represented by a different plant. And when a couple divorces? The plants stay here, he said with a sad smile, because I believe love, even when it ends, leaves something beautiful in the world, and because I hope they find happiness again, even if not together. Rachel walked slowly between the flower beds, reading some of the names on the plaques. There was a silent poetry in that garden that moved her deeply. Nate, this is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. Thank you. It's my way of honoring true love. And my name. Were you going to plant something for me and Bradley? Nate pointed to an empty flower bed in the corner of the garden. I had set aside that space. But after what happened, well, I don't think it would be appropriate. Rachel approached the empty flower bed and stared at it for a few minutes. You know something? I still think I should plant something there. Why? Because even though the wedding didn't happen, I learned something important. I learned that I shouldn't settle for less than I deserve. I learned that true love exists in the world, because I met you. Nate stopped working and looked at her. Rachel, let me finish, she interrupted. Last night when I talked to Bradley, I realized I never truly felt loved by him. But talking to you, hearing about the love you had for your wife, I understood what a real relationship should be like. And what should it be like? Based on complete acceptance, mutual respect, genuine admiration, not on concessions or pretense. Nate moved closer to her chair. Did you break up with him for good? Yes, and I don't regret it one bit. They were silent for a few moments, observing the garden around them. Rachel, can I show you something special? She nodded. Nate led her to a small pergola at the back of the garden, where a lush grapevine grew. This was the first plant my wife and I planted together when we were still dating. I transplanted it here when I started the garden. It's beautiful. It produces sweet grapes. Emily used to say it was the symbol of our love, something that grew slowly but produced delicious fruit. Rachel gently touched one of the vine's leaves. Do you still talk to her? Every day. I tell her about my work, about the people I meet, about the weddings I witness. He hesitated. And yesterday I told her about you. Rachel's heart raced. What did you say? I said I met an extraordinary woman, a woman who had the courage to face public humiliation with dignity, a woman who didn't let rejection defeat her, but used that experience to know herself better. And what else? I said this woman reminded me why it's worth believing in love. Rachel felt tears in her eyes. Nate, I need to tell you something. What? Since I met you, I can't stop thinking about you, about the way you speak, how you treat people, how you see life. You made me feel special in a way I had never experienced before. Nate was silent for a long moment. Rachel, you just got out of a difficult relationship. Don't you think you should give yourself some time to process everything? Maybe you're right, she admitted, but I can't ignore what I'm feeling. And what are you feeling? That you are the kind of man I would like to have by my side. Someone who sees me as a whole person, who values me for my strengths, who isn't bothered by my chair. Rachel, you barely know me. I know enough. I see how you treat people, how you care for this garden, how you honor your wife's memory. I see a good, honest man capable of loving deeply. Nate moved even closer to her chair. And you don't think it would be strange? Me working as a cleaner, you being a businesswoman? People won't understand. People didn't understand when Bradley left me at the altar either. If I let myself be guided by other people's opinions, I'll never be happy. Rachel, I'm 35, you're 28. I have practically no savings. You come from a wealthy family. Nate, are you looking for excuses, or do you really think these things matter? He laughed nervously. I think I'm looking for excuses because I'm scared. Scared of what? Of falling in love again, of opening my heart and risking the pain I felt when I lost Emily. Rachel reached her hand toward him. Nate hesitated for a moment, but then took her hand. "Nate, I can't promise you we won't get hurt. I can't promise you it will be easy. But I can promise you that I will love you sincerely, that I will respect you, that I will care for your heart as if it were my own. And what if it doesn't work? What if we discover we're very different people? Then we'll discover that together, without pretense, without pressure. But at least we will have tried." Nate squeezed her hand more firmly. "Are you sure about what you're doing?" "I've never been more sure of anything in my life. Even knowing I'll need time to completely overcome the grief. I don't expect you to forget Emily. She was part of your story. She helped shape who you are today. I just want a chance to be part of your future." Nate moved even closer and gently cupped Rachel's face in his hands. "Rachel, you are an incredible woman. Any man would be lucky to be by your side." "Then be that man," she whispered. They kissed there, in the middle of the garden Nate had created, surrounded by love stories of hundreds of couples. It was a sweet kiss, full of promises and possibilities. When they parted, Rachel was radiant. "Does this mean we're going to try?" she asked. "It means we're going to get to know each other better, slowly, without rush, building something solid. I'd like to know more about you, about your story, your dreams, your fears. And I'd like to know more about you too," he smiled, starting with one question. "What do you enjoy doing most?" "Working. I know it might sound boring, but I've always taken pleasure in solving problems, creating strategies, seeing projects come to life." "And what do you enjoy least?" "Pretending I'm less capable than I really am. Sometimes people treat me with pity, as if I were a child who needs to be protected from everything." "I understand. And what are your dreams?" Rachel reflected on the question. "I've always wanted to travel the world, to know other cultures, other ways of seeing life. But I also want to build something important, leave a positive mark on the world." "How so?" "I don't know yet. Maybe a company that creates jobs, maybe social projects that help other people with disabilities. I'm still figuring it out." "And you?" she asked. "What are your dreams?" "I've always wanted to have a family, children, a house with a big yard where I could have a vegetable garden. A simple life but full of love." "And why did you never have children with Emily?" The question touched a sensitive spot, but Nate answered honestly. "We tried for a long time. She had a few pregnancies that didn't go to term. When we discovered the cancer, the doctors said the treatments would make a pregnancy impossible. That must have been very hard for you both." "It was. But Emily always said love didn't need children to be complete, that the two of us were already a family." Rachel was touched by the story. "Do you still want to have children?" "Yes, if it's possible. And you?" "I've always wanted to. But after the accident, I started questioning if I would be capable of caring for a child." "Why wouldn't you be?" "The chair can be a limitation for some activities." "Rachel," Nate interrupted, "you manage a company. You drive by yourself. You take care of yourself. Why would caring for a baby be any different?" The question made Rachel think. She realized she had internalized some limitations that might not even exist in reality. "You're right. I think I still have some fears to overcome." "We all do. The important thing is not to let fears stop us from pursuing what we want." They continued talking for another 2 hours, discovering common ground and sharing stories. Rachel felt increasingly attracted to Nate's personality, to the way he viewed life with optimism despite the difficulties he had faced. "Rachel," he said as she prepared to leave, "can I take you to dinner tomorrow?" "Of course, but it doesn't have to be anything fancy. I prefer simple places where we can talk without rushing. I know a perfect spot. An Italian cantina in Little Italy, small, family-run. The food is delicious and the atmosphere is cozy." "Sounds great. Shall I pick you up at 7? "That works." "Oh, Nate." "Yes?" "Thank you for helping me discover who I really am. Thank you for helping me remember it's worth taking a risk for love." Rachel left the church with a light heart full of expectation. For the first time in a long while, she had a date to look forward to with positive anticipation, not with fear or insecurity. At home, her mother immediately noticed the change in her mood. "You're glowing today. Did you talk to Bradley?" "No, Mom, and I'm not going to talk to him anymore. I ended things with him for good yesterday." "Rachel, you might be making a mistake." "Mom, listen to me carefully. I've never felt so sure about a decision in my life. Bradley doesn't truly love me. He loves an idealized version of me that doesn't exist." "And now are you going to be alone?" "Not necessarily." Rachel smiled mysteriously. Margaret understood there was something different about her daughter, but decided not to press the matter for now. For the rest of the day, Rachel found herself constantly thinking about Nate, about the way he tended the garden, the gentleness with which he spoke of his late wife, the genuine interest he showed in her. There was an honesty in Nate that completely contrasted with the men she had known before. He didn't try to impress with material achievements or exaggerated stories about himself. He was simply authentic, and that authenticity was magnetic. The next morning, Rachel woke up excited about the evening's date. She spent the day trying to focus on work, but her mind kept flying back to Nate. Around 5 o'clock, she started getting ready. She chose a dark green dress, simple but elegant, that brought out her eyes. She applied light makeup and let her hair down, allowing it to fall naturally over her shoulders. At 7 on the dot, Nate rang the doorbell. Rachel went to answer it and was struck by the change in him. He wore dark jeans, a white shirt, and a navy blazer. He was dressed up but without being overdone, exactly the way she liked. "You look beautiful," he said upon seeing her. "You look very nice too," she smiled. "Shall we go?" The restaurant Nate had chosen was perfect, small, family-run, with little wooden tables and simple but cozy decor. The owner, an Italian gentleman around 60, greeted Nate warmly. "Nate, my friend, long time no see," the man said with a thick accent. "Hi, Mr. Vincent. This is Rachel, the one I told you about." Vincent looked at Rachel with a warm smile. "Pleasure to meet you, Signorina Rachel. Nate has spoken a lot about you, said you are a molto special woman." Rachel blushed slightly. "The pleasure is mine." Vincent led them to a small table in the corner of the restaurant, a private and intimate spot. He lit a candle in the center of the table and brought an appetizer of bruschetta with tomato and basil. Compliments of the house, and he winked at Nate, for a special first date. When they were alone, Rachel laughed. "You talked to him about me?" "Vincent is sort of the neighborhood's unofficial love counselor," Nate smiled. "When I told him I'd met a special woman, he was very happy, said it was about time I found someone." "And what else did you say about me?" "I said you were brave, smart, beautiful, and that you made me want to be a better person." Rachel felt her heart race. "That's very sweet." "It's the truth." They ordered dinner, gnocchi with pomodoro sauce for her, shrimp risotto for him, and continued talking about their lives. "Nate, can I ask you something about your wife?" "Of course." "How did you two handle the limitations imposed by the wheelchair?" "Actually, we didn't handle them as limitations. We dealt with them as characteristics of our life, in the same way we dealt with the fact that she was shorter than me, or that I was more organized than her." "How so?" "For example, when we decided to travel, we researched accessible places. When we bought a house, we chose one that already had adaptations or could be easily adapted. They were just practical aspects, not emotional problems." "And people? How did they react to you as a couple?" "Most reacted normally. Some people looked with curiosity, others with admiration. Very rarely did anyone make a disrespectful comment. And when they did?" Emily had a foolproof technique. Nate laughed. She would smile and say, "Thank you for your concern, but we are very happy this way." Her politeness disarmed anyone. Rachel felt inspired by how Emily handled prejudice. "She seems to have been an incredible person." She was. "And you know what? She always said she wanted me to find someone special after her. She said true love isn't possessive. It's generous." "Do you think she would approve of our attempt at a relationship?" Nate became thoughtful for a moment. "I think so. She always said I should look for someone who made me laugh, who challenged me to grow, who shared my values, and who had the courage to face difficulties by my side." And do you think I have those qualities? I'm sure you do. The dinner continued with intimate conversations about dreams, fears, future plans. Rachel discovered that Nate had a subtle but sharp sense of humor, that he read a lot, that he liked classical music, and that he dreamed of opening a landscaping company. "Why don't you go back to engineering?" she asked. "I think about it sometimes. But after 3 years away, I'm afraid I've lost the pace, the technological updates. You could take refresher courses, study the new developments. I'm sure you could get back into the market." "Maybe. But I also like the idea of working with landscaping. It's a field that combines engineering with art, planning with beauty. And why not try it? You clearly have a talent for it, seeing the garden you created at the church. I need capital to start my own business. And I don't have the courage to ask for a bank loan." Rachel was tempted to offer financial help, but she sensed it would be better not to do so early in the relationship. "Have you researched microcredit? There are specific financing lines for small entrepreneurs." "No, I've never researched it. Do you understand that?" "A little. At my family's company, we've helped some suppliers get credit to expand their businesses. Could you give me some tips?" "Of course. I can even help you put together a business plan if you want." Nate smiled. "Isn't this too fast? We barely know each other and you're already offering professional help." "It's not professional help," Rachel corrected. "It's a person who cares about you, wanting to see you achieve your dreams." Her sincerity touched Nate deeply. "Rachel, can I ask you a personal question?" "Go ahead." "Don't you think it's strange to be interested in me? I mean, you were left at the altar just a few days ago. Nate, what I feel for you is completely different from what I felt for Bradley. With him, I always had a feeling of trying hard to be accepted. With you, I feel accepted naturally." "How so?" "With Bradley, I always avoided talking about the difficulties I faced because of the chair. I pretended they didn't exist, so as not to bother him. With you, I can be completely honest about my fears and limitations, because I know you won't judge me, and that's important to you. It's fundamental. I want to be with someone who sees me whole, not just the parts that are easy to accept." After dinner, Nate suggested a walk along Fifth Avenue. The historic center of Little Italy was bustling, with bars and restaurants full of young people. "Do you like music?" he asked as they passed a bar playing live samba. "I like it a lot. You?" "Me too. My wife used to play guitar. On weekend nights, she would sing while I cooked." "That must have been very romantic." "It was. I miss those simple moments, you know, the everyday intimacy of a relationship." Rachel understood perfectly what he meant. She also missed having someone to share small daily moments with. "Nate, can I tell you something?" "Of course." "I was thinking, would you like to have dinner at my house tomorrow? I can cook for you." "You cook?" "Yes, I do. And well, I might add," she laughed, "I learned out of necessity after the accident. My mother didn't even know how to fry an egg. I'd love to. What are you planning to make?" "It's a surprise, but I can guarantee it will be delicious. And your mother, will she be there?" "Probably. But don't worry, she's very polite with guests." In truth, Rachel was a bit apprehensive about her mother's reaction to meeting Nate. Margaret had class prejudices that could make the situation awkward. "Rachel," Nate stopped walking and turned to her. "I need to tell you something." "What?" "Today was one of the best days I've had in a long time. Thank you for giving me this chance. Thank you for making me feel special." They kissed again, right there on the street, not caring about the passers-by. It was a more passionate kiss than the previous one, full of desire and promises. Nate took her back home and said goodbye with another kiss at the door. "I'll see you tomorrow at 7. "I'll see you. Sleep well." "You too." Rachel floated into the house. Her mother was in the living room watching television. "How was the date?" "It was perfect, Mum." "Who did you go out with?" "With Nate, the church employee I met on the wedding day." Margaret turned off the television and turned to her daughter. "Rachel, are you serious?" "Completely serious." "Honey, you just got out of a 2-year relationship. Don't you think you should give yourself some time?" "Mom, I know what I'm doing." "Rachel, This man works as a janitor. You have nothing in common. We have much more in common than Bradley and I ever had. How so? We talk about everything, Mom, about dreams, fears, values. He makes me laugh. He makes me think. He makes me want to be a better person. Rachel, be realistic. What future is there in a relationship like this? The future we build together. Margaret sighed deeply. Rachel, you've always been very smart. Don't do something foolish because you're emotionally shaken. Mum, I invited him to dinner here tomorrow. I hope you treat him with respect. Of course I'll treat him with respect. I just hope you're not fooling yourself with romantic fantasies. Rachel went to her room, determined not to let her mother's prejudices affect her happiness. The next day, she spent the morning buying ingredients and planning the dinner. She decided to make an eggplant lasagna, which was one of her specialties, accompanied by a green salad and garlic bread. During the afternoon, she tidied the house and set the dining room table with candles and flower arrangements. She wanted everything to be perfect to welcome Nate. Around 6 o'clock, Margaret began to get visibly nervous. Rachel, are you sure about this dinner? I am, Mom, and please try not to make inappropriate comments. I know how to behave, Rachel. I know you do. I just ask that you give him a chance to get to know him before judging him. At 7 on the dot, Nate arrived bringing a bottle of wine and a bouquet of flowers from the church garden. Good evening, Rachel. You look beautiful. Thank you. Please come in. Rachel introduced him to her mother, who greeted him politely but with a certain coldness. Nice to meet you, Mrs. Margaret. Thank you for having me in your home. The pleasure is ours, Margaret replied diplomatically. The dinner started off a bit tense, with Margaret asking subtly invasive questions about Nate's life. And how long have you been working at the church? 3 years, Mrs. Margaret. And before that? I was a civil engineer. I stopped working to care for my wife, who was ill. I see. And do you plan to return to engineering now? I'm actually thinking about working in landscaping. Rachel noticed her mother was interrogating Nate as if he were a criminal and decided to intervene. Mom, Nate created a beautiful garden at the church. You should see it. How interesting, Margaret replied without showing any real interest. As the dinner progressed, however, Nate's kind and cultured personality began to win even Margaret over. He showed knowledge on various subjects, told interesting stories about his work at the church, and treated Rachel with obvious affection and respect. Nate, Margaret said during dessert, you mentioned you're thinking about working in landscaping. Is it a promising market? I believe so, Mrs. Margaret. There's a growing demand for green spaces in urban areas, therapeutic gardens, sustainable projects. And do you have experience in the field? I have theoretical knowledge from college and practical experience caring for the church garden. I lack commercial experience, but I believe I can learn. Is the church garden really that beautiful? Margaret asked, turning to her daughter. It's stunning, Mum, a living work of art. After dinner, Nate insisted on helping with the dishes despite protests from Rachel and Margaret. My mother taught me that a man who doesn't help in the kitchen isn't fit for dating, he joked. The comment even made Margaret smile. When he finished cleaning up, he politely said goodbye. Mrs. Margaret, thank you so much for dinner and your hospitality. It was a pleasure to meet you. The pleasure was ours, Nate. Come back any time. Rachel walked him to the door. What did you think of my mother? I think she loves you very much and is worried about your well-being. It's natural to be protective of only children. She was a bit harsh with you at first. She was. But I understand. If I had a daughter, I'd probably act the same way with any suitor. Rachel smiled at his maturity. Do you always see the positive side of situations? Not always. But I've learned that life gets lighter when we try to understand people instead of judging them. Another lesson you learned from Emily? That one was actually from my mother, he laughed. She always said, everyone has their reasons for acting the way they do, even when those reasons aren't obvious. After Nate left, Rachel found her mother in the kitchen, putting away the last few dishes. So, what did you think of him? Margaret hesitated for a moment. He's different than I expected. How so? More polite, more cultured, and it's obvious he's very fond of you. But, no but, Rachel. If you're happy with him, I am too. Rachel was surprised by her mother's change in attitude. Really? Really? He treats you with a tenderness that Bradley never showed, and you've been radiant since you started seeing him. Rachel hugged her mother, moved. Thank you, Mum. Your approval is important to me. Just one thing, Rachel. What? Don't rush. You've only known him for a few days. Let things flow naturally. Don't worry, we're taking it slow getting to know each other. In the following days, Rachel and Nate met almost daily. He took her to see different places around the city. Parks, museums, little art fairs. She introduced him to her friends and co-workers. Rachel was impressed by how easily Nate adapted to any environment. He conversed naturally with both her business friends and the humble churchgoers. A week after their first meeting, Rachel decided it was time for Nate to get to know her professional life better. "Would you like to visit my company tomorrow?" she asked during lunch. "Of course. I'd love to learn about your work." "It's a digital marketing consulting firm. We work mainly with small and medium-sized businesses." "Do you like what you do?" "I do, especially when we help a small business grow and create more jobs." "It must be rewarding to see the results of your work." "It is. Just as it must be rewarding for you to see the gardens you plant grow and bloom." The next day, Rachel took Nate to see the company. The office was in a modern building in Midtown Manhattan with a panoramic view of the city. "Wow, what an incredible view," Nate commented as he entered. "It really is. Sometimes I just stare out the window, especially at the end of the day when the sun is setting." Rachel introduced him to her colleagues and showed him the projects she was working on. Nate was particularly interested in a campaign for an organic products company. "Do you work with many sustainable companies?" "A few. It's a growing market." "And landscaping companies? Have you worked with any?" Rachel smiled. She had realized where he was going with this. "No, not yet, but it would be interesting to work with that sector." "Why would it be interesting?" "Because landscaping combines technical, artistic, and environmental aspects. There would be many creative possibilities for marketing campaigns." Nate became thoughtful. "Rachel, were you serious when you offered to help me with a business plan?" "Completely serious. Why? Have you decided to go ahead with the idea?" "I'm seriously thinking about it. I spoke with Father William yesterday and he encouraged me a lot." "What did he say?" "He said gifts should be shared, not hidden, and that my work in the church garden showed I have a talent for the field." "He's right. You have a natural gift." "You would really help me?" "I don't want you to do it out of pity or some obligation in the relationship." "Nate, I would do it even if we were just friends. I believe in your potential." "What if the business doesn't work out? What if I lose the borrowed money?" "What if it does work out? What if you build something incredible?" Rachel's question echoed in Nate's mind for the rest of the day. That evening he called her. "Rachel, I've decided. I want to try to open the landscaping company." "That's great. When do we start working on the plan?" "Can we start this weekend?" "Of course. How about Saturday morning? Can I come to your place, or would you prefer to come here?" Nate hesitated. "Actually, I haven't shown you where I live yet. It's a very simple place." "Nate, do you think I care about that?" "No, but..." "Then give me your address. I want to see your home." On Saturday morning, Rachel headed to the address Nate had given her, a quiet street in the Queens neighborhood. The house was small but well kept, with a front garden that showcased his talent with plants. Nate greeted her, visibly nervous. "Please come in. Sorry for the simplicity." Rachel entered and was delighted with the interior of the house. It was small but cozy, tastefully decorated and very clean. There were plants in every room and photos of his late wife scattered around the living room. "Your home is beautiful, Nate. It radiates an incredible peace." "Thank you. Emily decorated most of it. I haven't had the heart to change much since she passed." Rachel noticed a photo of the couple on the living room sideboard. Emily was a beautiful woman with a sweet smile, curly hair, and expressive eyes. She was very beautiful. She was, inside and out. Rachel felt a twinge of jealousy, but quickly scolded herself. It was natural that Nate still felt love for his late wife. "May I see the rest of the house?" Nate took her to see the 2 bedrooms and the kitchen. The couple's bedroom was still intact, with photos and personal items of Emily's. "Do you still sleep here?" "No. I sleep in the smaller room. This one has become a sort of memorial for her." Rachel understood it would take a lot of time and care for Nate to completely overcome his grief. "And the backyard. Can I see it?" The backyard was small, but it was a true oasis. There were fruit trees, herb beds, a small vegetable garden, and flowers of various kinds. "Nate, this is paradise. It's where I spend most of my free time. Taking care of the plants calms me. Now I understand why you want to work in landscaping. You have a natural talent." They settled at the kitchen table to work on the business plan. Rachel had brought her laptop and some forms to structure the ideas. "Let's start with the basics," she said. "What would the company's name be? I haven't thought about it yet. How about something that reflects your work philosophy?" Nate became thoughtful. "Emily always said that gardens are bridges between man and nature. How about Green Bridge?" "Perfect. And what would be the main focus? Residential, commercial, public gardens?" "I believe I'd start with residential. It's where I have the most experience. But I'd like to evolve into therapeutic projects as well." "Therapeutic projects?" "Gardens adapted for people with special needs, the elderly, people in mental health treatment, places that promote well-being and healing." Rachel was touched by the sensitivity of the idea. "That's beautiful, Nate, and it has a lot of commercial potential too." They spent 3 hours defining the company's scope, calculating necessary investments, identifying the target audience, and promotion strategies. To start, you'd need about $15,000, Rachel calculated, for tools, a small vehicle, promotional material, and working capital for the first few months. "That's a lot of money," Nate sighed. "Not to start a business, and you can start small, serving a few clients a month until you establish a base. Do you really think it could work?" "I'm sure. Besides your natural talent, you have something many business people don't: genuine passion for what you do. And if I get a loan, would you help me with the company's marketing?" Rachel hesitated. Not because she didn't want to help, but because mixing personal and professional relationships could be complicated. "Nate, I can help you as a friend, giving tips and suggestions, but maybe it's not good to mix our relationship with work." "You're right, sorry for suggesting it." "No, don't be sorry, it's just that I want to protect what we're building together." "I understand perfectly." After finishing the plan, Rachel suggested they have lunch at a nearby restaurant. On the way, Nate was visibly thoughtful. "What are you thinking about?" "The future. How good it would be to have a job that gives me pleasure and still allows for a decent life." "And it would allow it. Landscaping is a growing field, especially in New York." "Rachel, can I ask you a question?" "Of course. Don't you think our worlds are very different? You come from a wealthy family. I barely have money to start a business." "Nate, money isn't what defines a person." "I know, but it defines opportunities, possibilities. You had the opportunity to go to college, to have a profession. You had the opportunity to love deeply and be loved. You had the opportunity to develop talents and values. Those are not lesser opportunities. You're right, sometimes I feel insecure because I'm not used to the standard of living you have. And I'm not used to the simplicity and authenticity you have. We're learning from each other." During lunch, they talked about social differences and how to overcome them in a relationship. "Nate, you know something? My family has had money for 3 generations. But I've met many wealthy people who were empty, superficial, unhappy. Material wealth doesn't guarantee human richness." "And do you think I have human wealth?" "I'm certain. You are generous, compassionate, talented, and have integrity. These are riches that cannot be bought." "Thank you for seeing that in me. Thank you for showing me that there is a different way to live life." After lunch, they returned to Nate's house. In the garden, Rachel suggested he teach her about the plants. "This one is lavender," he said, pointing to a small tree. "Besides being beautiful and fragrant, it has calming properties, good for relaxing teas and baths. And this one? Basil, great for cooking and naturally repels some insects." Rachel approached a flower bed with roses. "Are these your favorites?" "No, actually. My favorite is that one over there." He pointed to a vine with white flowers, jasmine. It was the first plant Emily and I planted together. Rachel felt that pang of jealousy again, but tried to hide it. "It's very beautiful." Nate noticed her discomfort. "Rachel, I know it must be difficult for you to hear so much about Emily." "A little," she admitted, "but I understand she was an important part of your life." "She was, but that doesn't diminish what I feel for you." "How so?" "The love I felt for Emily taught me to value the love I feel for you. It taught me that true love is rare and precious and should be nurtured with care." "And what do you feel for me?" Nate moved closer to her. "I feel like you brighten my days. I feel like I can be completely myself by your side. I feel like together we can build something beautiful." "And is that enough to overcome our differences?" "I believe so, if we both want it." They kissed there, in the middle of the garden Nate had created, surrounded by the beauty and tranquility he cultivated in his life. "Rachel," he said when they parted, "can I tell you something?" "You can." "I think I'm falling in love with you." Rachel's heart raced. "Think, or are you sure?" "I'm sure, and you?" "I'm past the think stage. I'm sure I'm in love with you." They smiled at each other, knowing they had crossed an important barrier in their relationship. "And now?" asked Rachel. "Now we build our future together, one day at a time." During the following weeks, the relationship between Rachel and Nate deepened. They spent weekends together, exploring the city, discovering new places, sharing experiences and dreams. Rachel helped Nate secure a bank loan to open the landscaping company. He started slowly, taking on 2 clients a month, but the results were excellent from the start. The first client was an elderly lady who wanted to transform her backyard into a therapeutic garden. Nate created a space with medicinal plants, a bench for resting and safe walking paths. "Nate, what you've done here is wonderful," said the client after the project was completed. "My blood pressure has even improved since I started spending time in this garden." The satisfaction of seeing his work making a difference in people's lives motivated Nate to invest even more in the company. The second client was a school that wanted to create an educational garden for children to learn about plants and sustainability. Nate developed a project that included a vegetable garden, a compost bin, and native plants of the region. "Mr. Nate," said the school principal, "the children are learning so much more about the environment since the garden was finished. You have a gift for teaching through nature." Rachel watched the growth of Nate's company with pride and admiration. She saw how he found professional fulfillment and how it positively reflected in his self-esteem. "How do you feel having your own business?" she asked during a dinner. "I feel useful, fulfilled. Each project is an opportunity to create something beautiful and functional." "And financially? Is it working out?" "Better than I expected." "I already have a waiting list for next month." "That's great. You deserve all this success." 1 month after starting the company, Nate received an unexpected invitation. A construction company wanted him to develop the landscaping for a new residential condominium. "Rachel, it's the chance of a lifetime," he said excitedly. "It's a big project that would give me visibility and resources to grow the company." "That's wonderful. Are you going to accept?" "I'm afraid I can't handle it. It's much bigger than anything I've ever done." "Nate, you have talent and dedication. If you don't take a risk now, when will you?" "You're right. I'll accept." The condominium project occupied Nate for 2 months. He worked from early morning until late at night, planning, buying materials, supervising the execution. Rachel supported him as much as she could, bringing lunch to the construction site, helping with paperwork, giving suggestions when asked. "Aren't you overdoing it with work?" she asked one night when he came home exhausted. "Maybe a little. But it's a unique opportunity to establish my reputation in the market. Just don't forget to take care of your health too. I promise that after this project, I'll slow down." When the condominium landscaping was finished, the result exceeded all expectations. Nate had created an environment that combined aesthetic beauty with practical functionality, including leisure areas, a playground with natural safety features, and contemplative gardens. "Nate, you've outdone yourself," said the construction company director. "We want to sign a contract for 3 more projects with you." The offer was tempting, but Nate asked for some time to think. "Rachel, they want to hire me for more projects. It would be a complete change in my life." "How so?" "I'd have to hire employees, rent an office, expand the company a lot. It would stop being a small business and become a real company." "And that scares you?" "A little. I'm afraid of losing control over the quality of the work. But it's also an opportunity to impact more people, create more jobs." "That's true. What would you do in my place?" Rachel reflected on the question. "I think I'd make an intermediate proposal. I'd accept 1 project at a time, expanding gradually as I felt confident." "Good idea. That way I can grow without losing the essence of the work." Nate followed Rachel's advice and negotiated with the construction company for 1 project per semester, allowing for controlled growth of the company. Meanwhile, the relationship between them grew stronger and stronger. They had developed a comfortable routine. They had dinner together at least 3 times a week, spent weekends exploring new places, or simply relaxing at home. Rachel had become a constant presence in Nate's house, and he was starting to feel comfortable in her mansion. "Rachel," said Margaret one morning, "you 2 are practically living together." "We're not living together, Mom. We just spend a lot of time together." "And when do you plan to make the situation official?" "What situation?" "The engagement, the marriage." Rachel was surprised by the question. "Mom, we haven't talked about that yet. We're enjoying the relationship as it is." "Rachel, you're 28. Don't you think it's time to think about something more serious?" "What we have is serious, Mom. But marriage is a step that needs to be discussed between the 2 of us." In fact, Rachel had thought about the subject a few times. She felt happy and fulfilled with Nate and could imagine herself married to him. But she didn't want to pressure him, especially knowing he was still processing the grief of his late wife. That night, during dinner at Nate's house, she decided to broach the subject. "Nate, can I ask you a question?" "Of course." "How do you see our future?" He stopped eating and looked at her. "What do you mean?" "I mean, can you imagine me as part of your life long term?" "Yes, I can." "Why are you asking?" "My mom mentioned marriage today. It got me thinking about it." Nate was silent for a few moments. "Rachel, I would really like to marry you someday." Her heart raced. "Someday when?" "When I'm sure I've completely worked through the grief over Emily. It wouldn't be fair to marry you carrying unresolved emotional baggage." Rachel understood and respected his honesty. "And how long do you think that would take?" "I don't know. Maybe a few months, maybe a year. It depends on how my internal process unfolds. Can I help you in any way?" "You already do, Rachel. Your presence in my life is healing me in ways I never thought possible." "How so?" "You've shown me it's possible to love again without betraying the memory of the one who's gone. You've shown me the heart has room for different loves, but equally deep ones." Rachel was moved by his words. "And what else needs to be resolved? I need to feel comfortable completely sharing my life with another person. I still have moments where I feel like I'm betraying Emily when I'm happy with you. That's normal, Nate. Grief is a process, not an event. You're very patient with me, because I love you, and I want you to be okay, regardless of what that means for our relationship. Thank you for understanding." They hugged, and Rachel felt they had reached a new level of emotional intimacy. 2 weeks after that conversation, Nate had an emotional crisis. It was the 3-year anniversary of losing Emily, and he was visibly depressed. Rachel went to visit him and found him in the garden, standing in front of the jasmine he had planted with his wife. "How are you?" she asked, approaching carefully. Confused, sad, guilty. "Guilty about what?" "About being happy with you when I should be mourning her." Rachel felt her heart tighten. "Nate, do you think Emily would want to see you suffering forever?" "No. She always told me to be happy." "Then why do you feel guilty for following her advice?" Nate turned to Rachel. "Because sometimes I feel like I'm forgetting her." "You're not forgetting. You're honoring her memory by living fully, like she would have wanted you to live." "Are you sure?" "I am. And you know why I'm sure?" Because if I were in her place, that's what I would want you to do." Rachel's words touched Nate deeply. He cried for a few minutes, releasing 3 years of accumulated guilt. "Rachel, thank you for helping me see that. Thank you for trusting me enough to share your pain." That conversation marked a turning point in Nate's grieving process. In the following days, he began to talk more openly about Emily, but in a nostalgic and affectionate way, no longer with sharp pain. "You know something?" he said to Rachel a few days later. "Emily would have really liked you. Why do you think that?" "Because she admired strong, independent women, and because she always said I should find someone who would help me grow as a person." "And do I make you grow?" "Every day, you challenge me to be better, inspire me to dream bigger, teach me to see the world from different perspectives." Rachel smiled, feeling touched. "You make me grow too, Nate. You taught me to value simple things, to have patience, to see beauty in places I used to ignore." A month after that conversation, Nate made an important decision. He rearranged the room he had kept as a memorial for Emily, putting her things away with care, but transforming the space into an office for his landscaping company. "Why did you decide to do that?" asked Rachel when he told her about the change. "Because I realized the best way to honor her memory is by building a future she would approve of." "And do you think she would approve of our relationship?" "I'm sure she would. She always said true love isn't possessive, it's generous. She would want to see me happy again." That night, for the first time since they'd met, Nate invited Rachel to stay over at his house. "Are you sure?" she asked. "I am. I feel it's the right time." It was a special night for both of them, not just because of the physical intimacy, but mainly because of the emotional intimacy it represented. Nate was allowing himself to be completely happy again. The next morning they woke up in each other's arms, with sunlight streaming through the bedroom window. "Good morning," said Nate, kissing Rachel's forehead. "Good morning. Did you sleep well?" "Better than I have in years." "Me too." They stayed in bed for a few more minutes, just enjoying the closeness of the moment. "Rachel," Nate said eventually. "Yes?" "I think I'm ready." "Ready for what?" "To build a future with you. To talk about marriage, family, shared dreams." Rachel felt her heart race. "Are you sure?" "Absolutely. You've made me understand it's possible to honor the past while building the future." They kissed, knowing they had reached a new chapter in their lives. "Then let's build that future," said Rachel, together. In the following weeks, Nate and Rachel began making concrete plans for the future. They talked about marriage, children, careers, where they'd like to live. "What kind of wedding would you like?" asked Nate. "Something simple, intimate, just family and close friends." "And where?" Rachel smiled. "How about in the garden of the church where we met?" "That would be perfect. Father William would be so moved." "And for the honeymoon?" "Europe has always been a dream of mine." "How about France and Italy?" "I'd love to see the gardens of Versailles and the vineyards of Tuscany." They also talked about children. "How many children would you like to have?" asked Rachel. 2 or 3. "And you?" "I've always dreamed of 2, a boy and a girl." "And you don't have any more worries about being a mother while using a wheelchair?" "I still have some, but I've done a lot of research and found that many women in wheelchairs are excellent mothers. It's a matter of adaptation and organization." "I'm sure you'd be a wonderful mother." They also discussed housing. "Would you like to keep living in your house or mine?" asked Rachel. "Actually, I'd like us to buy a new house, one that's ours from the start." "What kind of house?" "Something with a big yard, where we can have a garden and a vegetable patch, but one that's completely accessible for you." "And what about work? Do you want me to keep working at my family's company?" "I want you to do what makes you happy. If you want to stay there, great. If you want to do something else, also great." "Actually, I've been thinking about something different." "What?" "How about if we started a business together?" Nate was intrigued. "What kind of business?" "Therapeutic landscaping. You'd handle the technical side, I'd handle administration and marketing." "Are you serious?" "Completely. I believe there's a growing market for gardens that promote well-being and healing. It would be amazing to work together." "Then let's look into that possibility." 3 months after this conversation, Nate decided it was time to make the official marriage proposal. He wanted it to be special, but not showy. He planned everything carefully. He invited Rachel for a picnic in the garden of the church where they'd met, claiming he wanted to show her the new plants he'd put in. "What a good idea," she said. "I've missed this garden." On Saturday afternoon they met at the church. Nate had prepared a picnic basket with Rachel's favorite foods and spread a blanket on the lawn, near the flower bed he had reserved to plant something in honor of their wedding that never happened. "How romantic," remarked Rachel as she saw the setup. They sat on the blanket and began talking about various subjects. Nate was visibly nervous, but Rachel didn't suspect a thing. "Rachel," he said after they finished eating, "remember when you said I should plant something in that empty flower bed?" "I do. Why?" "Because I finally decided what to plant." He stood up and went to the flower bed, returning with a small sapling and a little wooden plaque. "What are you going to plant?" she asked. "A white rose, a symbol of pure and lasting love." Rachel smiled. "Beautiful. And what does the plaque say?" Instead of answering, Nate knelt beside her chair and showed her the plaque. It read, "Rachel Thompson and Nathan Mitchell, forever." "Rachel," he said, taking a small box from his pocket, "will you marry me?" Rachel brought her hands to her face, moved. The box contained a simple but beautiful ring with a small stone of excellent quality. "Yes," she answered without hesitation. "Of course I will." Nate placed the ring on her finger, and they kissed, right there in the garden where they had met, surrounded by the love stories of hundreds of couples. "When do you want to get married?" he asked. "Tomorrow, if it were possible," she laughed. "But being realistic, how about in 6 months? Enough time to organize everything without rushing." "Perfect. And Rachel?" "Yes?" "Thank you for teaching me it's possible to love again. Thank you for teaching me I deserve to be loved completely." They planted the rosebush together, symbolizing the official start of their new life together. In the following weeks, wedding preparations occupied much of the couple's free time. Unlike Rachel's previous wedding, which had been planned to impress, this one would be simple and meaningful. The ceremony would take place in the church garden, with only 50 guests. The decorations would be made with flowers from the very garden Nate tended. The reception would be in the parish hall, with a homemade dinner prepared by the church community. "Are you sure you don't want something more elaborate?" asked Margaret, who had offered to pay for a bigger celebration. "I'm sure, Mum, I want something that represents who we truly are. And are you happy with this choice?" "I've never been happier in my life." Margaret smiled. She had learned to love Nate like a son and was genuinely happy for her daughter. Then that's what matters. 1 month before the wedding, Nate and Rachel had to resolve a dilemma. Nate's landscaping company was growing rapidly, and he had received an offer to work at a resort in upstate New York. "It's an amazing opportunity," he told Rachel, "but it would mean being away from home for 3 months. And do you want to accept it?" "Professionally, it would be excellent for my career. Personally, I don't want to be away from you for that long." "What if I went with you?" "How so?" "I can work from anywhere as long as I have internet, and it would be a sort of early honeymoon." "Are you serious?" "Completely. We can rent a house in the town near the resort and take the chance to explore the area. Rachel, you're amazing. And you're my husband. I want to be by your side for all the important moments." 2 weeks before the wedding, something unexpected happened. Bradley showed up at Rachel's office asking to talk. "What do you want, Bradley?" she asked, clearly annoyed. "I heard you're getting married." "So?" "Rachel, I made the biggest mistake of my life when I left you at the altar." "Bradley, that was over a year ago. Get over it." I can't stop thinking about you." Rachel sighed. She had expected this conversation to happen sooner or later. "Bradley, you don't love me. You love the idea of possessing something you can't have." "That's not true." "Yes, it is. You abandoned me because you couldn't accept my wheelchair. Now you want to win me back because you can't stand seeing me happy with someone else." "Rachel, I've changed. I went to therapy. I worked on my prejudices." "And that's great, Bradley. For your next relationship, with me, it's definitively over." Are you sure this janitor is the right man for you? The question revealed that Bradley still held the same prejudices as before. This janitor has a name. It's Nathan. He's an engineer, a successful businessman, and most importantly, he loves me unconditionally. Rachel, be realistic. You two don't match. We match perfectly. He makes me laugh, challenges me to grow, respects me, values me. Everything you never did. Bradley tried a few more arguments, but Rachel was firm in her responses. When he finally left, she felt relieved to have definitively closed that chapter of her life. That evening, she told Nate about Bradley's visit. "How did you feel seeing him again?" asked Nate. "Indifferent. I realized I don't feel anything for him anymore, not anger nor hurt." "And what does that mean?" "It means I'm completely over him. It means my heart belongs entirely to you." Nate smiled and kissed her. "Mine also belongs entirely to you." Finally, the wedding day arrived. Rachel woke up at her mother's house, where she had spent the night before the ceremony, according to tradition. "How are you feeling?" asked Margaret as she helped her get dressed. "Nervous, anxious, happy, all at the same time?" "Nervous, why?" "I don't know. Maybe afraid something will go wrong." "Rachel, nothing will go wrong. Nate truly loves you." "I know, Mom. I think it's just normal bride's nerves." Rachel had chosen a simple yet elegant white dress that enhanced her natural beauty. She opted to wear her hair down, with a small tiara of natural flowers. "You look beautiful, my daughter," said Margaret, emotional. "Thank you for everything, Mom, for accepting Nate, for supporting me. Thank you for finding someone who makes you truly happy." They hugged, both crying with emotion. Arriving at the church, Rachel could see the garden decorated with white and green flowers. Nate had created a stunning setting, combining elegance with naturalness. The 50 guests were already present, family, close friends, and some churchgoers who had become special to the couple. Father William, who had become a dear friend to both, waited at the makeshift altar in the center of the garden. When Rachel appeared, escorted by her mother, Nate couldn't hold back his tears. She was radiant, more beautiful than ever. The ceremony was simple but deeply moving. The vows they exchanged were written by themselves and reflected their love journey. "Rachel," said Nate, "you taught me it's possible to start over without forgetting the past. You taught me that true love has no limits or conditions. I promise to love you every day of my life, to care for your dreams as if they were my own, and to build with you a family based on respect, understanding, and passion." "Nate," Rachel replied, "you showed me I deserve to be loved completely. You taught me that differences are overcome with love, and that together we can grow more than we ever could alone. I promise to be your companion in every adventure, your confidant in every fear, and your partner in every dream." When Father William declared them husband and wife, the entire garden erupted in applause. Nate kissed Rachel there, surrounded by the plants he had cared for over the years, symbolizing that love, like gardens, needs daily care to flourish. The reception in the parish hall was exactly as they had dreamed. Live music, homemade food, warm conversations, and lots of joy. During the newlyweds' dance, a soft song played on guitar by one of Nate's friends, Rachel whispered in her husband's ear, "Thank you for saving me that day." "Thank you for saving me too." They danced, she seated in her chair and he standing, but in perfect harmony, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Later, during the newlyweds' speech, Rachel made sure to highlight the journey they had traveled. "A year ago I was left at the altar because a man couldn't accept my wheelchair. Today I'm marrying a man who loves me not despite the chair, but including it, because he understands it's part of who I am. That taught me that when we find the right person, we don't need to hide or pretend to be someone we're not." The applause was warm and emotional. Nate also gave his speech. 3 years ago I lost the love of my life and thought I could never love anyone again. Rachel showed me that the heart has an infinite capacity for love and that it's possible to honor the past while building the future. She taught me that true love doesn't replace other loves but adds to them. The party continued late into the night, with all the guests celebrating the union of two people who had found in each other exactly what they needed. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to leave a like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now, continuing. At the end of the night, when they were alone tidying up the last details, Rachel and Nate met in the garden where it had all begun. "How do you feel, Mrs. Mitchell?" Nate teased. "Complete, Mr. Mitchell. And you?" "Like the luckiest man in the world." They walked to the rosebush they had planted on the day of the marriage proposal. The plant was already bigger, with the first rosebuds beginning to appear. "Our rosebush is growing," Rachel observed. "Like our love," Nate replied. "And like our family, I hope," said Rachel with a mysterious smile. Nate stared at her, intrigued. "Rachel, are you trying to tell me something?" "I am. I think our first child will be born in 8 months." Nate fell silent for a few seconds, processing the information. "You're pregnant?" "I am. I found out yesterday, but I wanted to tell you today, on our special day." Nate kissed her passionately, laughing and crying at the same time. "Rachel, you make me the happiest man in the universe. And you make me the most fulfilled woman in the world." They stood embraced in the garden, planning the future they would build together, knowing they had found in each other not only a great love, but a life partner for all seasons. End of story. So, dear listener, what did you think of this true love story? Do you think Rachel made the right decision marrying Nate? Tell us in the comments which part moved you the most, and if you've ever been through a similar situation. Don't forget to leave your like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other amazing stories like this one.